So, the latest episode of Miraculous Season 4, Gang of Secrets, released a while ago, and long story short, it was one of the most important episodes of the franchise so far, with the long-awaited identity reveal finally taking place. And at this point, it does feel like Asterix's been trolling us for years with minimal plot progression, and then Season 4 alone, bringing back the Guardians, sinking Lucanet, sinking Adragami, and unleashing the beginnings of the identity reveal. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. In my opinion, Season 4 is shaping up to be the best season of the show so far, so whatever he's doing, it's working for me. And I hate to toot my own horn, so to speak, but I totally called Alia being the first to know. I didn't exactly get it right as to how it would take place, but I did call it. But putting my arrogance aside for a moment, today I want to break down and give my opinions on how it all went down. The episode starts with Ladybug and Cat Noir hanging out after defeating another akumatized villain, with Ladybug acting unusually distant and distracted. Eager to try and solve her problems, and probably to try and crack onto her some more, Cat Noir takes her to see a romantic movie, which causes her to have a full-on meltdown in the cinema in front of a bunch of confused fans, ranting about how being Ladybug's too hard and basically breaking down her love life in front of the dude she unknowingly is in love with. And I found this scene pretty funny. Yes, it has sad undertones, but it's pretty ridiculous to see two superheroes in full costume sitting in the middle of a movie theater with one of them heckling the movie and then storming out ranting how true love's for suckers and nothing ever works out. Only to then do a full 180 and act as if they're completely fine and nothing's wrong at all. It was also interesting to see a little bit more personality from Marinette, more specifically negative traits. To me, it shows like they're fleshing out her character quite nicely. And on top of that, it's great to see that there are lingering plot threads being weaved through the episodes. The show's moving away from the old school monster of the week format. It's really ramping up the character development and story consequences. Meanwhile, we see Alia and the rest of the girls from class, except for the obvious Chloe and Sabrina, all chilling and talking about how Marinette seemed off recently and doesn't seem to be coping very well after her breakup with Luca. A highlight of the scene was Julika somehow having a close-up photo of Luca's sad face after they broke up, because that's not weird at all, is it? Also, what's with her speech regression this season? Did she always only mumble? Has anyone else noticed this? I swear she used to talk sometimes. Anyway, they continue talking about how Marinette's been distant with them and is obviously unhappy, with Alia having caught her crying at school. So they decide to call Marinette to tell her that they all care about her and want to help her, only for her to ignore their call because she's too depressed. Tiki, Trix, and the other Kwamis try to cheer her up, whilst Alia and the girls decide to go to her house to see her in person. Mylène then gives them the idea that they should give her an eternal friendship bracelet, with each girl putting on a different bead to symbolise their friendship with her. Highlight of this part was Alex not being really into this and saying they should just take her out for orange juice instead. She was probably right, to be honest. So obviously, this is the hook for the drama of the episode to really start to build up. Tiki tries to console Marinette, but doesn't really know how to get through to her because Kwamis don't fall in love. Poor Plag. Marinette decides to transform again and heads up to the roof, determined to be only Ladybug forever, so she doesn't have to deal with the disappointment in her personal life at the same time as her friends come into her room. They almost managed to find the miraculous box that she'd hidden in a dollhouse she was putting together, which understandably makes Marinette freak out and yell at them for invading her personal space. She then rejects the friendship bracelet, tells them to leave, and pretty much ends the friendships on the spot. Which obviously was a bit of an overreaction, honestly, but it's realistic all things considered, and I like that she doesn't just handle everything perfectly. She's being self-destructive and hurting her friends because the pressure's getting too much for her at this point. It makes her seem a lot more like a teenager than she usually does, and I think it shows that the writers are starting to hit their stride. Then of course, Shadow Moth unleashes an Akuma, which finds the girls and akumatizes them all at once by possessing the bracelet they'd made, turning them into their classic akumatized forms from Season 1. And this was a pretty cool twist. Usually they make it so the akumatized people need to be touching the same object to get possessed, but this time that wasn't the case. Only Alex was holding it. But since they all had the emotional connection to the Akuma, it was able to turn them all at once. It opens up a whole new set of scenarios people can get akumatized in, and it was pretty unique, just adding to the feeling of originality that the episode had. The villains then all decide to go after Marinette to force her to be their friend again, with Alia as Lady Wi-Fi teleporting into her room to confront her, just after Marinette puts the miracle box into some random sewing container that has secret buttons. And side note, how did she get that? Did she build it? Seems pretty high-tech to me, especially considering she's had maybe 20 minutes to make this. Anyway, since she can't transform in front of Alia, Trix decides to use his power without a holder, unleashing a super mirage that tricks Lady Wi-Fi into following a fake Marinette, with the side effect being that the Eiffel Tower now looks like it's made of rubber. I like this as it shows the Kwamis aren't just stupid. They'll use their powers if they have to, but there's a price that has to be paid for it, and that's why they usually don't. Like Plague, Super Cataclysm destroying a huge chunk of Paris that one time, it's a last resort sort of deal. Ladybug then transforms and goes after the villains as Adrian and Plague watch the Eiffel Tower flopping around like an inflatable balloon man. Plague deduces that this was Trix's work and Adrian decides that Ladybug needs him and transforms as well. They have a little phone chat where Ladybug comes up with a plan to isolate one of the villains to try and figure out what the akumatized object is. Whilst Cat Noir goes after Timebreaker, Ladybug ties up Lady Wi-Fi and tries to get her to reveal where the akumatized object is. Ladybug tells Alia that while she might be struggling with Marinette, Ladybug depends on Rena Rouge as a friend and trusts her completely. And then for the first time ever, a fully akumatized person is able to reject the Akuma and break themselves free without destroying the object first. I know the power of friendship trope is kind of hated, but I think for once it worked well in this context. It was set up well and it didn't come across as lame, and it made Alia look like a bit of a beast if I'm honest. Meanwhile, the Gang of Secrets is just about to defeat poor old Cat Noir before he's saved by a last-minute mirage from a newly transformed Rena Rouge. Whilst Ladybug distracts 3 of the gang, Timebreaker goes after the mirage version of Marinette before getting trapped by Cat Noir and Rena Rouge and having her akumatized items stolen. And I like this little scene. Whilst it was Marinette's plan, it didn't actually rely on her being super strong or super skilled. In fact, she probably knew that she wasn't going to beat the other 3 alone. It used the strengths of all the team members and didn't make her out to be this all-powerful saviour, just smart and a good team leader. Anyway, the episode ends with the gang reconciling with Marinette, who plays off the whole incident as her being sad about her breakup with Luca. But as the gang leaves, Alia stays behind to ask her what's really wrong. And this is where we get that juicy reveal. Marinette, after breaking down about how all these secrets are ruining her life, reveals to Alia that she is Ladybug. And the Miraculous fandom collectively went wild. Now, I know some fans were disappointed that it was Alia that found out first, not Cat Noir, and I get it, I do. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually becomes an issue in character between Ladybug and Cat Noir later on in the season. But to me, it makes sense. Alia was Marinette's friend before Adrien, has been completely devoted as an ultimate fan of Ladybug, and has the rational head to help Marinette at this point of time without being emotionally influenced like Cat Noir would be. Both Alia and Cat Noir are Ladybug's best friends, and whilst it's important for Marinette and Adrien to find out each other's identities, it was a necessity for Alia to know first, in my opinion. Anyway, this episode as a whole was really good, and it sets up a lot of cool potential storylines going forward. As a whole, Season 4 has been really good so far, and I think the quality of the writing's been astounding. Although I'm a little concerned that they're going through so many key moments so quickly that we're going to have a bit of filler towards the end of the season. But so far, Asterix's been faithful to his hype of this season so far, so let's keep our fingers crossed. That being said though, those are just my thoughts, and I'd like to hear yours. Did you like the episode? Hate it? What do you think it means for the story going forward? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.